Chicken Soup for the Soul, reading number 9, with fulfillment summary intro. No apologies, no regrets, and no limits, spelled N-O, is our aim. And to get there, we have to go through no apologies, no regrets, and no limits, spelled K-N-O-W. No apologies means you never need to apologize. And to get there, you have to know when you do want to apologize. No regrets means you feel in your heart that you accept bad feelings as guidance, using experiences you don't like to learn, grow, and move up. And that's what you do after you know what you regret. No limits means that you can have, do, and be anything you want. And for that, you have to know the programming you have that's limiting you, so you can continue to grow. The way to know when to apologize, what to regret, and what programming is limiting you is to ask yourself these things one at a time, and then quiet your mind so you can hear the answers. You think about 60,000 thoughts every day. And the way to get the answers to your most important questions is to allow the space for them to come to your mind. You do this through meditation and connecting to your source of creation or your higher power. And in the space between your thoughts, you'll hear the answers to your most important questions. And the more space between your thoughts you can create, the more answers you will allow to come to you. Get very relaxed and very quiet to find these answers. Breathing deeply feels great and helps you create more space. Sitting up straight with your head high and a smile on your face, while focusing on your breath, helps you connect to your guidance. Give it a try. Search the internet for guided meditations and know that you have to practice this for a while before you get the benefit from it. Be like a baby learning how to walk. Babies are relentless. Do you know any people who gave up learning how to walk? Probably not. Here's the trick. Meditate until you like it. And that's when it starts to work for you. And you can begin to become limitless as you're meant to be. Chicken Soup for the Soul, reading number 9. The little boy. Once, a little boy went to school. He was quite a little boy, and it was quite a big school. But when the little boy found that he could go to his room by walking right in from the door outside, he was happy. And the school did not seem quite so big anymore. One morning, when the little boy had been in school a while, the teacher said, Today we are going to make a picture. Good, thought the little boy. He likes to make pictures. He can make all kinds. Lions and tigers, chickens and cows, trains and boats. And he took out his box of crayons and began to draw. But the teacher said, "Wait, it's not time to begin." And she waited until everyone looked ready. "Now," said the teacher, "we are going to make flowers." Good, thought the little boy. He likes to make flowers. And he began to make beautiful ones with his pink and orange and blue crayons. But the teacher said, "Wait, and I will show you how." And she drew a flower on the blackboard. It was red, with a green stem. "There," said the teacher. "Now you may begin." The little boy looked at the teacher's flower. Then he looked at his own flower. He liked his flower better than the teacher's. But he did not say this. He just turned his paper over and made a flower like the teacher's. It was red, with a green stem. On another day, when the little boy had opened the door from the outside all by himself, the teacher said, "Today we are going to make something with clay." Good, thought the little boy. He liked clay. He could make all kinds of things with clay: snakes and snowmen, elephants and mice, cars and trucks. And he began to pull and pinch his ball of clay. But the teacher said, "Wait, it's not time to begin." And she waited until everyone looked ready. "Now," said the teacher, "we are going to make a dish." Good, thought the little boy. He liked to make dishes. And he began to make some that were all shapes and sizes. But the teacher said, "Wait, and I will show you how." And she showed everyone how to make one deep dish. "There," said the teacher, "now you may begin." The little boy looked at the teacher's dish. Then he looked at his own. He liked his dishes better than the teacher's. But he did not say this. He just rolled his clay into a big ball again and made a dish like the teacher's. It was a deep dish. And pretty soon, the little boy learned to wait and to watch and to make things just like the teacher. And pretty soon, he didn't make things of his own anymore. Then it happened that the little boy and his family moved to another house in another city. And the little boy had to go to another school. This school was even bigger than the other one. And there was no door from the outside into his room. And the very first day he was there, the teacher said, "Today we are going to make a picture." Good, thought the little boy. And he waited for the teacher to tell him what to do. But the teacher didn't say anything. She just walked around the room. When she came to the little boy, she said, "Don't you want to make a picture?" "Yes," said the little boy. "What are you going to make?" "I don't know until you make it," said the teacher. "How shall I make it?" asked the little boy. "Why, any way you like," said the teacher. "And any color?" asked the little boy. "Any color," said the teacher. "If everyone made the same picture and used the same colors, how would I know who made what and which was which?" "I don't know," said the little boy. And he began to make pink and orange and blue flowers. He liked his new school, even if it didn't have a door right in from the outside. Helen E. Buckley. Let kids do what they want. Next story is titled, I Am a Teacher. I am a teacher. I was born the first moment that a question leaped from the mouth of a child. I have been many people in many places. I am Socrates, exciting the youth of Athens to discover new ideas through the use of questions. I am Anne Sullivan, tapping out the secrets of the universe into the outstretched hand of Helen Keller. I am Aesop and Hans Christian Andersen, revealing truth through countless stories. I am Marva Collins, fighting for every child's right to an education. I am Mary McLeod Bethune, building a great college for my people, using orange crates for desks. And I am Belle Kaufman, struggling to go up the down staircase. That's italicized. Up the down staircase. The names of those who have practiced my profession ring like a hall of fame for humanity. Booker T. Washington, Buddha, Confucius, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Leo Buscaglia, Moses, and Jesus. Leo Buscaglia wrote a whole bunch of books about love. He's a great guy. I am also those whose names and faces have long been forgotten, but whose lessons and character will always be remembered in the accomplishments of their students. I have wept for joy at the weddings of former students, laughed with glee at the birth of their children, and stood with head bowed in grief and confusion by graves dug too soon for bodies far too young. Throughout the course of a day, I have been called upon to be an actor, friend, nurse, and doctor, coach, finder of lost articles, moneylender, taxi driver, psychologist, substitute parent, salesman, politician, and a keeper of the faith. Despite the maps, charts, formulas, verbs, stories, and books, I have really had nothing to teach, for my students really have only themselves to learn. And I know it takes the whole world to tell you who you are. I am a paradox. I speak loudest when I listen the most. My greatest gifts are in what I am willing to appreciatively receive from my students. Material wealth is not one of my goals, but I am a full-time treasure seeker in my quest for new opportunities for my students to use their talents, and in my constant search for those talents that sometimes lie buried in self-defeat. I am the most fortunate of all who labor. A doctor is allowed to usher life into the world in one magic moment. I am allowed to see that life is reborn each day with new questions, ideas, and friendships. An architect knows that if they build with care, their structure may stand for centuries. A teacher knows that if they build with love and truth, what they build will last forever. I am a warrior, daily doing battle against peer pressure, negativity, fear, conformity, prejudice, ignorance, and apathy. But I have great allies intelligence, curiosity, parental support, individuality, creativity, faith, love, and laughter all rush to my banner with indomitable support. And who do I have to thank for this wonderful life I am so fortunate to accept, to experience? But you, the public, the parents, for you have done me the great honor to entrust to me your greatest contribution to eternity, your children. And so I have a past that is rich in memories. I have a present that is challenging, adventurous, and fun, because I am allowed to spend my days with the future. I am a teacher, and I thank God for it every day. John W. Schlatter. You know, we're all teachers. You don't have to be in a school standing in front of a bunch of students to be a teacher. I'm talking off the book here. We're all teachers. Every one of us are teachers. Every single time we're interacting with another person, we're being a teacher. Unless you live by yourself and you never see anyone else, then you're a teacher. Every time you're experiencing life with another person or posting something on your social media or whatever, you're being a teacher. So take heart to your teachings. Be the mirror. Be the way you want other people to be. With all of your teachings throughout your life. Part 5, live your dream. The full page says 5, live your dream. And underneath that it says, people who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. Don't listen to people who say it cannot be done. Do what you like. Go. Don't spend a lot of time with people who say you can't do what you want to do. Don't even tell people what you want to do. Like you got it right, just do it. Feel like you got it right, just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Feel like you got it right, just do it. I learned that from Wayne Dyer. He said, I'm talking off the book here, he said, you don't want to tell other people what you want to do, because when you do that, it becomes an ego thing. Now you have to live up to what you said, and as soon as you're involving your ego, it's blocking it from happening. It's making it harder. It's giving you more struggle. So don't tell people what you want to do. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Keep it to yourself. Keep it between you and your higher power. Your higher power is all that you can, is the only one who will help you, really. Help you get the connections. You don't know how your connections will come to you. All you can do is ask your higher power, your source of creation, to bring them to you from your heart. If you do it right, thinking, feeling, how can I serve? How can I serve more? How can I serve better? Then you'll get the connections that you need to help you do what you want to do. And don't tell anyone else. Just keep it between you and whatever you want to call God. Okay, back to the book. Live your dream. Live your dream. The next story is titled, Make It Come True. In 1957, a 10-year-old boy from California set a goal. At the time, Jim Brown was the greatest running back ever to play pro football. And this tall, skinny boy wanted his autograph. In order to accomplish his goal, the young boy had to overcome some obstacles. He grew up in the ghetto, where he never got enough to eat. Malnutrition took its toll, and a disease called rickets forced him to wear steel splints to support his skinny, bowed-out legs. He had no money to buy a ticket to get into the game, so he waited patiently near the locker room until the game ended and Jim Brown left the field. He politely asked Brown for his autograph. As Brown sighed, the boy explained, "Mr. Brown, I have your picture on my wall. I know you hold all the records. You're my idol." Brown smiled and began to leave. But the young boy wasn't finished. He proclaimed, "Mr. Brown, one day I'm going to break every record you hold." Brown was impressed and asked, "What's your name, son?" The boy replied, "Orenthal James. My friends call me OJ." O.J. Simpson went on to break all but 3 of the rushing records held by Jim Brown before injuries shortened his football career. Goal setting is the strongest force for human motivation. Set a goal and make it come true. Dan Clark. Well, I guess O.J. was able to say to someone else what he wanted to do and make it work. Maybe he didn't tell the people who, well, whatever. Whatever. The next story is titled, I Think I Can! Exclamation mark. It begins with a quote by Henry Ford. "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right." That's one of my favorite quotes. I love that quote. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. It's not just a one-time thing. It's whatever you hold on to. The feelings and thoughts that you hold on to is what you get. Back to the book. Rocky Lyons, the son of New York Jets defensive end Marty Lyons, was 5 years old when he was driving through rural Alabama with his mother, Kelly. He was asleep on the front seat of their pickup truck, with his feet resting on her lap. As his mom drove carefully down the winding 2-lane country road, she turned onto a narrow bridge. As she did, the truck hit a pothole and slid off the road, and the right front wheel got stuck in a rut. Fearing the truck would tip over, she attempted to jerk it back up onto the road by pressing hard on the gas pedal and spinning the steering wheel to the left. But Rocky's foot got caught between her leg and the steering wheel, and she lost control of the pickup truck. The truck flipped over and over, down a 20-foot ravine. When it hit bottom, Rocky woke up. "What happened, Mama?" he asked. "Our wheels are pointing toward the sky." Kelly was blinded by blood. The gear shift had jammed into her face, ripping it open from lip to forehead. Her gums were torn out, her cheeks pulverized, her shoulders crushed, with one shattered bone sticking out of her armpit. She was pinned against the crushed door. "I'll get you out, Mama," announced Rocky, who had miraculously escaped injury. He slithered out from under Kelly, slid through the open window, and tried to yank his mother out, but she didn't move. "Just let me sleep," begged Kelly, who was drifting in and out of consciousness. "No, Mama," Rocky insisted. "You can't go to sleep." Rocky wriggled back into the truck and managed to push Kelly out of the wreckage. He then told her he'd climb up to the road and stop a car to get help. Fearing that no one would be able to see her little boy in the dark, Kelly refused to let him go alone. Instead, they slowly crept up the embankment, with Rocky using his meager 40-pound frame to push his 104-pound mother. They crawled inches at a time. The pain was so great that Kelly wanted to give up, but Rocky wouldn't let her. To urge his mother on, Rocky told her to think, quote, about that little train. The one in the classic children's story, A Little Engine That Could, which managed to get up a steep mountain. To remind her, Rocky kept repeating his version of the story's inspirational phrase, "I know you can, I know you can." When they finally reached the road, Rocky was able to see his mother's torn face clearly for the first time. He broke into tears, waving his arms and pleading, "Stop, please stop." The boy hailed a truck. "Get my mama to a hospital," he implored the driver. It took 8 hours and 344 stitches to rebuild Kelly's face. She looks quite different today. Quote, "I used to have a straight, long nose, thin lips, and high cheekbones. Now I've got a pug nose, flat cheeks, and much bigger lips." But she has few visible scars and has recovered from her injuries. Rocky's heroics were big news, but the spunky youngster insists he didn't do anything extraordinary. He explains, "It's not like I wanted it to happen. I just did what anyone would have done." His mother said, "If it weren't for Rocky, I'd have bled to death." First heard from Michelle Borba. The next story is titled, "Rest in Peace, the, quote, I can't funeral." Donna's fourth grade classroom looked like many others I had seen in the past. Students sat in 5 rows of 6 desks. The teacher's desk was in the front and faced the students. The bulletin board featured student work. In most respects, it appeared to be a typically traditional elementary classroom. Yet, something seemed different that day I entered it for the first time. There seemed to be an undercurrent of excitement. Donna was a veteran, small town, Michigan school teacher, only 2 years away from retirement. In addition, she was a volunteer participant in a countrywide staff development project I had organized and facilitated. The training focused on language arts ideas that would empower students to feel good about themselves and take charge of their lives. Donna's job was to attend training sessions and implement the concepts being presented. My job was to make classroom visitations and encourage implementation. I took an empty seat in the back of the room and watched. All the students were working on a task, filling a sheet of notebook paper with thoughts and ideas. The 10-year-old student closest to me was filling her page with, quote, I can'ts. Quote, I can't kick the soccer ball past second base. Quote, I can't do long division with more than 3 numerals. Quote, I can't get Debbie to like me. Her page was half full, and she showed no signs of letting up. She worked on with determination and persistence. I walked down the row, glancing at students' papers. Everyone was writing sentences, describing things they couldn't do. Quote, I can't do 10 push-ups. Quote, I can't hit one over the left field fence. Quote, I can't eat only 1 cookie. By this time, the activity engaged my curiosity, so I decided to check with the teacher to see what was going on. As I approached her, I noticed that she too was busy writing. I felt it best not to interrupt. Quote, I can't get John's mother to come in for a teacher conference. Quote, I can't get my daughter to put gas in the car. Quote, I can't get Alan to use words instead of fists. Thwarted in my efforts to determine why students and teacher were dwelling on the negative instead of writing the more positive, quote, I can statements, I returned to my seat and continued my observations. Students wrote for another 10 minutes. Most filled their page. Some started another. Quote, finish the one you're on and don't start a new one, were the instructions Donna used to signal the end of the activity. Students were then instructed to fold their papers in half and bring them to the front. When students reached the teacher's desk, they placed their, quote, I can't statements into an empty shoebox. When all the student papers were collected, Donna added hers. She put the lid on the box, tucked it under her arm, and headed out the door and down the hall. Students followed the teacher. I followed the students. Is she going to burn it? I hope she burns it. Halfway down the hall, the procession stopped. Donna entered the custodian's room, rummaged around, and came out with a shovel. Shovel in one hand, shoebox in the other. Donna marched the students out of the school to the farthest corner of the playground. There they began to dig. They were going to bury their, quote, I can'ts. The digging took over 10 minutes because most of the 4th graders wanted a turn. When the hole approached 3 feet deep, the digging ended. The box of, quote, I can'ts was placed in a position, was placed in position at the bottom of the hole and quickly covered with dirt. 31 10 and 11-year-olds stood around the freshly dug grave site. Each had at least one page full of, quote, "I can'ts" in the shoebox, 4 feet under. So did their teacher. At this point, Donna announced, "Boys and girls, please join hands and bow your heads." The students complied. They quickly formed a circle around the grave, creating a bond with their hands. They lowered their hands and waited. Donna delivered the eulogy. Friends, we gather today to honor the memory of I can't. While with us on earth, touched the lives of everyone, some more than others. This name, unfortunately, has spoken in every public building, schools, city halls, state capitals, and yes, even the White House. Quote, "We have provided I can't with a final resting place and a headstone that contains its epitaph. It's survived by its brothers and sisters. I can, I will, and I'm going to right away. They are not as well known as their famous relative, and are certainly not as strong and powerful yet. Perhaps someday, with your help, they will make an even bigger mark on the world. My, quote, I can't, may I can't rest in peace, and may everyone present pick up their lives and move forward in its absence. Amen." As I listened to the eulogy, I realized that these students would never forget this day. The activity was symbolic, a metaphor for life. It was a right brain experience that would stick in the unconscious and conscious mind forever. Writing I can'ts, burying them, and hearing the eulogy. That was a major effort on the part of this teacher, and she wasn't done yet. At the conclusion of the eulogy, she turned the students around, marched them back into the classroom, and held a wake. They celebrated the passing of I can't with cookies, popcorn, and fruit juices. As part of the celebration, Donna cut out a large tombstone from butcher paper. She wrote the words I can't at the top and put R.I.P. in the middle. The date was added at the bottom. There's a picture of the tombstone, I can't, R.I.P., 3/28/80. The paper tombstone hung in Donna's classroom for the remainder of the year. On those rare occasions when a student forgot and said, I can't, Donna simply pointed to the RIP sign. The student then remembered that I can't was dead and chose to rephrase the statement. I wasn't one of Donna's students. She was one of mine. Yet, that day, I learned an enduring lesson from her. Now, years later, whenever I heard the phrase, I can't, I see images of that 4th grade funeral. Like the students, I remember that I can't is dead. Chick Mormon. The next story is titled The 333 Story. I was doing a weekend seminar at the Deerhurst Lodge, north of Toronto. On Friday night, a tornado swept through a town north of us called Barrie, killing dozens of people and doing millions of dollars worth of damage. Sunday night, as I was coming home, I stopped the car when I got to Barrie. I got out on the side of the highway and looked around. It was a mess. Everywhere I looked, there were smashed houses and cars turned upside down. That same night, Bob Templeton was driving down the same highway. He stopped to look at the disaster, just as I had. Only his thoughts were different than my own. Bob was the vice president of Telemedia Communications, which owns a string of radio stations in Ontario and Quebec. He thought there must be something we could do for these people with the radio stations they had. The following night, I was doing another seminar in Toronto. Bob Templeton and Bob Johnson, another vice president from Telemedia, came in and stood in the back of the room. They shared their conviction that there had to be something they could do for the people in Barrie, spelled B-A-R-R-I-E. After the seminar, we went back to Bob's office. He was now committed to the idea of helping the people who had been caught in the tornado. The following Friday, he called all the executives at Telemedia into his office. At the top of a flip chart, he wrote 3 number 3s. He said to his executives, "How would you like to raise $3 million 3 days from now in just 3 hours and give the money to the people in Barrie?" There was nothing but silence in the room. Finally, someone said, "Templeton, you're crazy. There's no way we could do that." Bob said, "Wait a minute. I didn't ask if we could or even if we should. I just asked you if you'd like to." They all said, "Sure, we'd like to. Sure, we'd like to." He then drew a large T underneath the 333. On one side, he wrote, "Why we can't." On the other side, he wrote, "How we can." Quote, "I'm going to put a big X on the why we can't side. We're not going to spend any time on the ideas of why we can't. That's of no value. On the other side, we're going to write down every idea that we can come up with on how we can. We're not going to leave the room until we figure it out." End quote. There was silence again. Finally, someone said, "We could do a radio show across Canada." Bob said, "That's a great idea," and wrote it down. Before he had it written, someone said, "You can't do a radio show across Canada. We don't have radio stations across Canada." That was a pretty valid objection. They only had stations in Ontario and Quebec. Templeton replied, "That's why we can. That stays." But this was a really strong objection because radio stations are very competitive. They usually don't work together, and to get them to do so would be virtually impossible according to the standard way of thinking. All of a sudden, someone suggested, You could get Harvey Kirk and Lloyd Robertson, the biggest names in Canadian broadcasting, to anchor the show. That would be like getting Tom Brokaw and Sam Donaldson to anchor the show. They are anchors on national TV. They are not going to go on radio. At that point, it was absolutely amazing how fast and furious the creative ideas began to flow. That was on a Friday. The following Tuesday, they had a radiothon. They had 50 radio stations all across the country that agreed to broadcast it. It didn't matter who got the credit as long as the people in Barrie got the money. Harvey Kirk and Lloyd Robertson anchored the show, and they succeeded in raising $3 million in 3 hours within 3 business days! Exclamation mark. You see, you can do anything if you put your focus on how to do it rather than on why you can't. Bob Proctor. And I want to add to that, where you really want to focus is, according to most of the learning I've done, is on the outcome of it, of what you want being accomplished. All you really need to know is the what. I mean, you definitely want to think of ways that you can make what you want happen. And it's most likely not going to be, it's almost likely not going to happen in the way you're thinking. So basically, don't worry about the how so much. Just accept whatever comes to you. Okay? Just know what you want. And try to get as much publication on that as you can. Go to a news show or something. I don't know. Alright, back to the book. There are no vans, is the title of the next story. There are no vans. I remember one Thanksgiving when our family had no money and no food, and someone came knocking on our door. A man was standing there with a huge box of food, a giant turkey, and even some pans to cook it in. I couldn't believe it. My dad demanded, "Who are you? Where are you from?" The stranger announced, "I'm here because a friend of yours knows you're in need and that you wouldn't accept direct help. So I brought this for you. Have a great Thanksgiving." My father said, No, we can't accept this." The stranger replied, "You don't have a choice," closed the door and left. Obviously, that experience had a profound impact on my life. I promised myself that someday I would do well enough financially so that I could do the same thing for other people. I bet you this is Tony Robbins, isn't it? I'm going to flip to the end. I think this is Tony Robbins. Yep, Anthony Robbins. Ha ha! Yeah. I've heard him tell this story lots of times. Obviously, that experience had a profound impact on my life. I promised myself that someday I would do well enough financially so that I could do the same thing for other people. By the time I was 18, I had created my Thanksgiving ritual. I like to do things spontaneously, so I would go out shopping and buy enough food for 1 or 2 families. Then I would dress like a delivery boy, go to the poorest neighborhood, and just knock on a door. I always included a note that explained my Thanksgiving experience as a kid. The note concluded, quote, "All that I ask in return is that you take good enough care of yourself so that someday you can do the same thing for someone else." I have received more from this annual ritual than I have from any amount of money I've ever earned. Several years ago, I was in New York City with my new wife during Thanksgiving. She was sad because we were not with our family. Normally, she would be home decorating the house for Christmas. But we were stuck here in a hotel room. I said, "Honey, look, why don't we decorate some lives today instead of some old trees?" When I told her what I always do on Thanksgiving, she got excited. I said, "Let's go someplace." Should I try to do my Tony Robbins voice? No, I'm not going to do it. Let's go someplace where we can really appreciate who we are, what we are capable of, and what we can really give. Let's go to Harlem. She and several of my business partners who were with us weren't really enthusiastic about the idea. I urged them, "Come on! Let's go to Harlem." No, come on, let's go to Harlem and feed some people in need. We won't be the people who are giving it because that would be insulting. We'll just be the delivery people. We'll go buy enough food for 6 or 7 families for 30 days. We've got enough. Let's just go do it. That's what Thanksgiving really is. Giving good things. Not eating turkey. Come on. Let's go do it. Because I had to do a radio interview first, I asked my partners to get us started by getting a van. When I returned from the interview, they said, "We just can't do it. There are no vans in all of New York. The rent-a-car places are all out of vans. They're just not available." I said, "Look, the bottom line is that if we want something, we can make it happen. All we have to do is take action." Massive action! There are plenty of vans here in New York City. We just don't have one. Let's go get one. They insisted. "We've called everywhere. There aren't any." I said, "Look down at this street. Look down there. Do you see all those vans?" They said, "Yeah, we see them. Let's go get one." I said. First I tried walking out in front of the vans as they were driving down the street. I learned something about New York drivers that day. They don't stop. They speed up. Then we tried waiting by the light. We'd go over and knock on the window, and the driver would roll it down, looking at us kind of leery, and I'd say, "Hi, since today is Thanksgiving..." Okay, I said I want to do that. "Hi, since today is Thanksgiving, we'd like to know if you would be willing to drive us to Harlem so we can feed some people." Every time the driver would look away quickly, furiously roll up the window, and pull away without saying anything. Eventually, we got better at asking. We'd knock on the window, they'd roll it down, and we'd say, "Today's Thanksgiving. We'd like to help some underprivileged people, and we're curious if you'd be willing to drive us to an underprivileged area that we have in mind here in New York City." That seemed slightly more effective, but still didn't work. Then we started offering people $100 to drive us. That got us even closer, but when we told them to take us to Harlem, they said no and drove off. We had talked to about 24 people who all said no. My partners were ready to give up on the project, but I said, it's the law of averages. Somebody is going to say yes. Sure enough, the perfect van drove up. It was perfect because it was extra big and would accommodate all of us. We went up, knocked on the window, and we asked the driver, could you take us to the disadvantaged area? We'll pay you $100. The driver said, you don't have to pay me. I'd be happy to take you. In fact, I'll take you to some of the most difficult spots in the whole city. Then he reached over on the seat and grabbed his hat. As he put it on, I noticed that it said Salvation Army. The man's name was Captain John Rondon, and he was the head of the Salvation Army in the South Bronx. We climbed into the van in absolute ecstasy. He said, I'll take you places you've never even thought of going. But tell me something. Why do you people want to do this? I told him my story and that I wanted to show gratitude for all that I had by giving something back. Captain Rondon took us into parts of South Bronx that make Harlem look like Beverly Hills. When we arrived, we went into a store where we bought a lot of food and some baskets. We packed enough for 7 families for 30 days. Then we went out to start feeding people. We went to buildings where there were half a dozen people living in one room, squatters, with no electricity and no heat in the dead of winter, surrounded by rats, cockroaches, and the smell of urine. It was both an astonishing realization that people lived this way and a truly fulfilling experience to make even a small difference. You see, you can make anything happen if you commit to it and take action. Miracles like this happen every day, even in a city where there are no, quote, there are no vans. Anthony Robbins. Kind of makes me wonder what would have come of Anthony Robbins, Tony Robbins, if that person didn't give him the free Thanksgiving. He didn't force his dad to take the Thanksgiving stuff. You think he still would have been the biggest influence our world has seen so far? I don't know. Yeah, that was his past. Something else would have happened, probably. All right. Ask, Ask, Ask is the title of the next story on my next reading on page 168.
Chicken Soup for the Soul, reading number 9, with fulfillment summary intro. No apologies, no regrets, and no limits, spelled N-O, is our aim.
No.
To get there, we have to
When
go
to
through
apologize.
no apologies, no regrets, and no limits, spelled K-N-O-W. No apologies means you never need to apologize. And to get there, you have to know when you do want to apologize. No regrets means you feel in your heart that you accept bad feelings as guidance, using experiences you don't like to learn, grow, and move up. And that's what you do after you know what you regret. No limits means that you can have, do, and be anything you want. And for that, you have to know the programming you have that's limiting you, so you can continue to grow.
So you can pull it
The
out.
way to know when to apologize,
Get all the
what
roots.
to
Pull it out
regret,
slowly.
and
Get
what
all the roots.
programming is limiting you, is to ask yourself these things
Empower yourself.
one at a time, and then quiet your mind so you can hear the answers. You think about 60,000 thoughts every day, and the way to get the answers to your most important questions is to allow the space for them to come to your mind. You do this through meditation and connecting to your source of creation or your higher power. And in the space between your thoughts, you'll hear the answers to your most important questions. And the more space between your thoughts you can create, the more answers you will allow to come to you. Get very relaxed and very quiet to find these answers.